The now controversial figure of Captain Cook undoubtedly changed world history by being the first European to chart the eastern coast of Australia, which ultimately laid the foundation for the colonisation of Australia by the British and the emergence of the Australia we all know today. But while many people, especially here in Australia, know of his many navigational achievements, far fewer know about the brutal manner in which he met his death, which is what I'll be covering in today's video. So with that little intro out the way, let's get straight into it. It would be on Captain Cook's third and final voyage after his activities in Australia that he would first encounter the islands of Hawaii, which would fatefully prove to be his final resting place. While Captain Cook and his fellow adventurers first sighted the islands on the 18th of January 1778, they would not set foot on the islands until some 9 months later, when he and his men stopped on them to resupply. Initially exploring the coasts of Maui and the Big Island of Hawaii, and trading with locals, they would eventually make anchor in Kealakekua Bay in January 1779. Fortunately for them, Cook and his crew were initially welcomed and treated with honour, as his arrival coincided with the Makahiki season, an ancient New Year festival in honour of the god Lono of the Hawaiian religion, and a celebration of the yearly harvest. However, the commonly held belief or suggestion that the native Hawaiians considered Cook to be the god Lono himself is now considered to be inaccurate. It is possible that some of the Hawaiians may have just used the name of Lono as a metaphor when describing Cook, or some other possible explanations other than them just simply assuming he was their own deity. Regardless, after both Cook and the crews of both his ships left the islands, the festival season came to an end, ominously making way for the season of battle and war. Despite initially being welcomed by the natives, it is clear that by the time of this departure, there was already tension brewing between Cook and his men and the native Hawaiians, with one notable incident occurring when Captain Charles Clerke accused a native chieftain of stealing the HMS Resolution's jolly boat, which was essentially a small boat used to ferry people to and from the main ship. When the boat was soon found though, the native chief became understandably incensed by the accusation and was greatly offended. Yet another important incident involving Cook himself occurred when Cook attempted to barter with the Hawaiians and ordered his men to remove the wood used to border the native sacred Morai burial ground, used for high-ranking individuals and depictions of their gods. Cook supposedly offered some iron hatchets for the wooden border around the Morai, but when the dismayed and insulted chiefs refused, Cook proceeded to give the orders to ascend the Morai anyways, chop down the fence and load the boats with the wood. Sometime after these two incidents occurred, on the 6th of February 1779, Cook's ships left the bay, but were soon met with harsh weather, which on the 11th of February forced the HMS Resolution to return to the bay to make repairs. An American, John Ledyard, who was president at the time, wrote of this return that our return to this bay was as disagreeable to us as it was to the inhabitants, for we were reciprocally tired of each other. They had been oppressed and were weary of our prostituted alliance. It was also equally evident from the looks of the natives, as well as every other appearance, that our friendship was now at an end, and that we had nothing to do but to hasten our departure to some different islands, where our vices were not known, and where our intrinsic virtues might again gain us another short space of being wondered at. Further increasing tensions was the fact that, while the Resolution was anchored, one of its two longboats was stolen by the Hawaiians, who by this point had begun openly stealing from the Europeans to see how far they could go. It is in response to this that, in an attempt to get the stolen longboat back, Captain Cook made the fateful move of attempting to kidnap the alii nui of the island of Hawaii, which, forgive me for my, I'm sure, poor pronunciation, was essentially the king. On the morning of the 14th of February 1779, Cook and his men launched from the Resolution, along with a company of armed marines. They went directly to the ruling chief's home, where he was still sleeping, and proceeded to wake him up, directing him urgently, but without threat, to come with them. The king's wife saw them as they were leaving, and yelled at her husband. However, he ignored her and did not stop. Panicked, his wife then called to the other chiefs and townspeople to alert them to what was happening. It was then that two chiefs, including the young son of the former ruler and the king's own personal attendant, followed the group to the beach, with the king's wife behind them, pleading along the way for the king to stop and come back. By the time they'd gotten to the beach, the king's two youngest sons, who had been following their father, believing, as their father did, that they were being invited to visit the ship, began to climb into the boats waiting at the shore. The king's wife then shouted at the children to get out of the boat and pleaded with her husband to stop. It was at this point that the ruler realized that Cook and his men were not asking him to visit the ship, but were instead attempting to abduct him, at which point he stopped and sat down. While trying to retake control of the situation, Cook's men were approached by an elderly priest who began chanting at them. They yelled at the priest to go away, however he approached ever closer to them while singing. When Cook and his men eventually diverted their attention from the priest, they saw that the beach was now filled with thousands of native Hawaiians. Cook then attempted to order the king to get up, however he refused. As the townspeople began to gather around them, Cook and his men began to back away from the now hostile crowd and raised their guns. Seeing this escalation, the two previously mentioned chiefs shielded their king as Cook attempted to get him to his feet. One of the angry chiefs, known as Kanaina, then approached Cook, who reacted by striking him with the flat side of his sword, causing the even further infuriated man to lunge at Cook and grab him. Some accounts state that Kanaina actually didn't intend to hit Cook, while others claim that he deliberately struck Cook across the head with his leomano, which was essentially a shark-toothed club used by the native Hawaiians. Either way, Kanaina pushed Cook, who fell to the sand. It was as Cook attempted to get to his feet that the other chief, Nua, jumped at him and fatally stabbed him in the chest with a metal dagger which had actually been obtained by trade from one of Cook's ships during that same visit. Cook then fell with his face in the water, causing a violent close quarters melee to break out between the Hawaiians and the killed explorer's men. 4 of the Royal Marines were killed and 2 were wounded, with the survivors, heavily outnumbered, continuing to fire as they retreated to their small boat and rowed back to their main ship, killing several of the angered people on the beach in the process, including possibly High Chief Kanaina himself. You might think that following this, the survivors would be eager to flee the islands. However, they were forced to remain in close proximity to complete the repairs to their damaged ship, as well as collect better quality drinking water. It was during this what would become a week-long period that a young William Bligh, the future captain of the HMS Bounty, later claimed to have been watching with a spyglass from the Resolution as Cook's body was dragged up the hill to the town by the native Hawaiians where they tore him to pieces. Despite what had just occurred though, it does actually seem that the native Hawaiians prepared Cook's body with funerary rites usually reserved for the chiefs and highest elders of society. The Hawaiians placed a high value on bones, particularly the long bones, such as in the legs, and would remove them from the rest of the body for keeping, which would potentially explain what William Bligh saw. Finally, as part of an honour ritual, it is believed that Cook's heart was eaten by the 4 most powerful Hawaiian chiefs. Following these rituals and requests from the British, some of Cook's remains were eventually returned to his crew, where what remained of him was buried at sea. Well, I think that's where I'm going to end the video, guys. Thank you so much for watching, I really do appreciate it. If you did enjoy the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe if you'd like to see more content from me. But with that said and out of the way, as always, I hope you all have a great day, night, wherever you are, and I hope to see you in the next one.